Hello, everybody. Welcome, Jack. Welcome to our show. Thank you for your time. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Jack. Nice to have you on the show. Hello, Amin.
Thank you for acknowledging that I am here too. Thank you, Peter. You're such a kind person. Jack Fang. Today we have Jack Fang. Fang. How do you Fang?
Bong.
Fang. Fang.
Fang.
In the show, and he is an archer, and he does very. But I think it's best is you quickly introduce yourself, Jack. So, where are you? Where do you come from? What are you doing? And where are you going?
Hi, my name's Jack Fang. I run the YouTube channel Historical Archery, and I practice archery. And so I think I came from when I was young. I always wanted to do archery, but very quickly I branched off to the historical side because I was always into that stuff. Ancient and medieval warfare, but particularly with bows. So I kind of just branched off into that field, and now my channel basically exclusively does historical content. And I try to mix research into a YouTube presentable format in a nutshell.
Nice.
I wouldn't say my videos are academic. I would just say they're mostly designed for entertainment and education, but because you really have to summarize a lot of things in a few words. So you have to generalize a lot of things, or at least be very cautious what you're saying instead of generalization. So that's something I've learned with my channel. So
yeah, there are a lot of critics out there. They don't know everything better. I know. Yeah.
Yes. So I've been. Anyways, the goal of my channel is to really deliver historical content, whether like in a YouTube format. That's really my goal. I also practice archery myself. This year, I recently got into horseback archery. And that was a lot of fun. Also, before that, I practice, and currently I do practice with heavy bows, with military bows. So I like doing that kind of stuff. But I think my goal of my YouTube channel is to really present, research findings in a YouTube format, something that I can, educate the public, but at the same time, be like general enough, I say simplistic enough that people would be able to be interested to watch. So it's not like a research form. There's plenty of I don't think YouTube is a good place for doing research. It's mostly a place for entertainment and some education. But to summarize something in 5 minutes, you really have to make generalizations and summary.
Of course. But sounds good, interesting, because even we always talk about historical things, and we have our discussions how an attack was with archers, why do you need to shoot 3 arrows fast, or, because they stand on the side and they shoot long distance, or they didn't shoot long distance, they were riding there. So it's always interesting to have there a bit input, especially in this medieval warfare, or even in China and what's going on. So it's cool. I think it's pretty cool.
And
I really sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Jack, talk.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to ask you, where do you get your informations about history and how archery was in the past, or warfare in the past? Where do you do your research? Where you get your knowledge from?
Okay. First of all, I just want to say I like to watch both of your content. Armin, your videos are definitely very inspiring for me. I really like your reviews.
It's not very historical what I do.
It's hard to find a hybrid of like commercial and historical content together, and you do that really well, I think, because they like the commercial. They want a bow for themselves, but they don't care about having it perfectly historical. So I like that you review a lot of these bows around the world, and I try to do some too, but I don't have the budget to do
in the beginning was a little tough. Now it gets a little easier. Now I have this Patreon project where I collect a little money. Then I always do a poll, and then I can buy the bow they want. Now most probably it's one from Novotny in America, one of his hornbows, but yeah, you know, what can I do? But of course, it's in the beginning, it's tough. But you simply continue with what you do, and you will see it will work.
And also, Peter, I like your videos too. I saw your videos on.
Thank you.
Was the place in China? You were in.
Yeah.
Do you
No
want
problem.
to do that or?
No, now I simply continue where you get your informations from. You were just stuck with Nanjing, that Peter was in Nanjing at the show,
Yeah.
and then.
Okay.
Was a very, very nice stay in China, I have to say. Very nice people. They were treated me wonderful.
Yeah.
And I had the impression the people there are not as we think in the West, they are unhappy and so, but they were happy because I had the impression they think always the next day everything is better.
Yes.
So they are quite how you call it, patient and work on and go on and go on.
Respectful, very. I mean, I was only 3 weeks in China. I was in Wudang Mountains, and everybody was very respectful. And then when you stop on the streets and the two old guys play chess, and you only look, then they directly, oh, you want to play? You want to play? Really kind people. So it was really nice.
Yeah.
Nothing negative to say.
Awesome.
But where do you get now your historical informations from? Do you go to libraries, or where do you get this information from for your channel?
So, so for my, it really depends on what I'm doing. Usually, what I try to do is in the Facebook Tarn research community, which is the Asiatic traditional.
I know them. Yeah.
Archery research group.
Yeah.
I usually meet a lot of people there that have similar interests. So I usually start with there to see people who have already done research on that and talk to them. And so, for example, when I was doing research on the Syrian Yurtzi bow, which is a Roman auxiliary bow during 200 AD, I found some people that have actually reproduced these bows already. It's just really didn't, communicate to anyone about it. So I reached out to them and, looked at their reproductions. So, and then get from their, obtain knowledge from them. So that's one way I do my research is from people with similar interests. Of course, the other things I do is when I go into the actual research of looking at this bow, for example, if I go back to the Yurtzi, I would start with online. I think that's just the easiest way to access information, and really go into the sources. And for example, with the Yurtzi bow, the archaeological find is actually in Yale University. So I would contact them and try to get permission for their photos and for my videos. Make sure that's really important for me to cite, videos. Make sure I have the permission and the,
of course,
stuff. So I get that, and then get information from them about what they know of this. Now, typically with museums, they just usually have a museum keeper, and very few people, have really specific knowledge about this. A lot of the people that did the archaeological work have either it's been like a long time, so they either passed away or they've moved on. You can't contact them anymore. So for this specific case, the person who has excavated has already passed away. From I think it was excavated during almost 100 years ago. So of course. So then what I would after a while. So what I would do is I would look at the bow, read on the findings they wrote from 100 years ago, which is still pretty easy for us to understand. And then just look into there. And then also I would check sources that from their research. And it's often very hard to find books that are associated to, because, a lot of the books today, if you try to find them, they wouldn't be in a physical library because of how niche it is, unless you're talking about really popular topics. So trying to find them online, sometimes I can get them, sometimes I can't, but I do try to look at books. And for example, when I was doing a video on the Belgium longbows, I would look at the importation of yew the Netherlands during the medieval period. At the time, they would have, it was the Flemish, the English, Burgundians. It wasn't called the same thing, but anyways, I'll look at where they would import the yew. Do they have any in the modern Belgian region? So things like that. So yes, there's books that I look at, but it is just harder, today, especially with the pandemic, to go to the library and try to get research, especially on something so niche of a topic. Unless you're talking about really popular topics like the English longbow, that's pretty, you can easily find books on that. But if you go into like things that are very not well researched, like Roman crossbows, things like that, you really have to like dig in, contact people that have done research and go from there. That's from my experience of how I do it.
Nice.
So
a lot of work, but it's interesting, and you can do a lot of things online with this because you can meet these people thanks to the internet everywhere. So it's good.
yes. When I was
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Of course, I have to throw in, I'm always very critical about old books, also new books. And you tell us how do you get your information and so on. And maybe back then, some 100 or maybe 1,000 years ago, they did the same. So one takes the opinion from another, and you never know what all is true or not true, what they have written in the old books, or so in my opinion, it's very difficult to get a clear or an objective view about history in common and about archery. And was there only one such bow, or were there many of that kind of bows, or you know what I mean? Because if they excavate one,
doesn't mean it's for all of them.
You don't know.
But at least maybe you can go with excluding. You have 10 different things, and you simply can start, okay, we can skip this, and then you end up with maybe 3 things instead of 10, and you can narrow it down, and then maybe the knowledge of an archer kicks in and said, okay, then this would be more reasonable than this or this. When you see this one Turkish book about thumb ring, and they have the thumb ring the opposite direction, because most probably it was military propaganda to give this book, either it's bad written, what I don't think, or it's simply make sure that the enemy gets this book and they put the thumb ring wrong, and then they break their fingers when they shoot. You never know.
Also, if you think about the number of warriors, or if they were big historic battles back then in ancient times, every king had his writer, and he wrote how many enemies they defeated. There were thousands and thousands, and the other party said, they were more and more, and so on. So it's very, and I showed a very good example today to Armin before you connected. I got here. I have to show it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a nice historical book too.
Awesome.
It'll be interesting for you for sure.
Yeah, just a moment. It's but I don't know if it's available in English language. I think it's only available in German language. It's about the Skyts.
The Scythian bow.
Scythian bow.
Oh, nice.
How to make it and so on. And I got it yesterday, and I ran through, and then I saw this picture. You see that 3 arrows?
Yes.
Yeah. And written below is reconstructed crestings, wrappings, painting on Scythian poisoned arrows. So maybe Jack, we don't know a lot about the Scythians in general. They don't know a lot about them. But this guy even knows how the poison arrows were painted.
Maybe he found one, and he was leaking. Oh, it's poisonous. This is the cresting.
That's what I mean. So maybe he got this from another source and he put it in this book, and so it's a kind of swamp somehow.
At least when you don't have the proof, or you really can't 100% say, then simply say, okay, we tend to, or whatever, what would make the most sense. and whatever, and from experience this or that. But of course, he directly shows you how the cresting looks of a poison arrow. They don't know. They don't know nothing about them. Yeah.
And the guys back then in history were the same like we are. When they, or even today, when they find something, they have to make a big number out of it. If they find just one bone, it was a big dinosaur and so on, and who knows?
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, I agree with you. Especially, I find a lot of the books, they, depending on what we're looking at, yes, they cite these things, but in the end, they try to cite it into their own narrative of what they're trying to tell us sort of in the context. So I appreciate books where they try to be more neutral, try to tone it down in how confident they are with the findings. Like talking, for example, what is like the Hungarian bow? People would have a few finds of history and then just say this is definitely the Hungary. That those kind of narratives I don't like. I like the ones that try to approach it, and it could be like this. Well, this is definitely something we found, but at the same time, we should keep an open mind about how much resources they would have. They likely would have a variety.
Because you say Hungarian bow. I don't know. I'm not a big history guy in that sense, but if you think about for how long the Turks ruled over Hungary, so it's very hard to, is it kind of more Osman or Turkish, or is it Hungarian? They were totally mixed up and so on. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's I like the books that try to give a more neutral narrative without bias, trying not to overly generalize things. So that's what I try to do these days with my videos is, give these finds, try to be, it could be this, it could be not, but at the same time, not making any conclusive conclusions. And I'll give an example. Like this is one of the modern.
Go ahead.
I've been making this for my Chinese crossbow video.
Okay. I think I watched it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look at him. Look at him. And the best is always then when you have some whatever information that you recreated. This is what we were talking with Murat Özferito, that you have really practical archaeologic whatever, and like you rebuild it, you construct it, and you shoot it. Exactly. So tell us.
What I wanted to say is to do the project of this crossbow, the Han Dynasty crossbow. I didn't want to always rely on there was like to do a research like this. One of the things that I had to look at is look at the ancient text, but also compare with the artwork of the time. And so what I want to say is, from most of the artwork I've seen during the Han Dynasty, specifically Han Dynasty Chinese crossbows, they look like this, with these reflex handle, reflex tips, and a long power stroke. But then you look at some of the ancient texts. So when I go look at the Truyin slips of the draw weights of these crossbows, what I found, with the help of others, in this case, Hackney Scribe here helped me a lot with the research, and I find the most common draw weight based on that text is 360 pounds. I think it's 6 Chinese stone. Okay. The calculation, it's about 360 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So then I have to apply my knowledge of bow making to think about it. So if you make a reflex recurve bow, like a reflex handle, reflex tip bow, of 300 pounds with this kind of power stroke, how likely is it? So contacting some hornbow makers, and they say, yeah, with the hornbow, yes, you can do something like this with this kind of power stroke. But in this dimension, if you would have made it in just self wood, in a reflex shape,
no chance.
300 pounds, it's almost impossible. So with that, in the reflex handle, reflex tip shape. So in that context, I would be confident that, hey, ones in the artwork would have described, sorry, I wouldn't be confident, but I would have assumed that the ones depicted in the artwork are, composite bows with horn sinew because of you know, are
Of
because
course, had to be.
the restrictions of the materials. But
Mhm.
then at the same time, the ancient text itself is describing 300-pound draw weights. But how would it be possible if the artwork is showing something like this?
Yeah.
Well, then you sometimes might think maybe the artwork is, you have to look at where the artwork is from. And so if you look at the artwork, it's from, most of it is from northern parts of China, which there's a lot more contact with nomads, especially like Xiongnu, a lot of which are nomadic people north of the Han Dynasty. They would have more access to, you know, horn and sinew. So these kind of bows would have been typical. But at the same time, you'd be asking, but what about people in the southern China? So then, could it be possible they would have just used self bows or laminated bamboo or wood? So doing research on that, I found some of the bows would have been laminated. Some of the archaeological finds have laminations with bamboo and wood. So I also made a reproduction with a southern Chinese crossbow prod where it's wood and bamboo. So in other words, when you look at all these sources, you really have to you know, interpret it, look at where the source is from, and then try to you know, piece it out. But like what I'm saying is, if you see the artwork and you see these crossbows, that doesn't mean all of them look like this. It's just in, you know, this is a crossbow they had possibly had at the time. Perhaps the artist made some liberties, took some liberties on what it would look like. So here's what it looks like in the artwork, but I don't have the other one with me conveniently right now. But then you look at the ancient text and try to interpret that, and then you think maybe other ones also existed. If they can make something like this, it would be, you know, logical to assume that they can make just a simple D shape, and the text would make sense if you look at the draw weights of what they're doing, and considering how complicated a composite bow is, especially 300 pounds at 25-inch power stroke, perhaps they would have been used with other materials that isn't reflex handle, reflex tip. So all of these things are considerations when I make these videos. So that's just one of the examples, for example.
Nice.
So
Great.
anyways, you really can't make any general, like, I try not to make generalization saying this is what a crossbow looks like, this is what it looks like in the Han Dynasty, this is what it looks like during the Roman period. You really want to say, you want to base it off of a source, but at the same time, just not be so confident about where that source is, you know, because it could very likely be a mixture, you know, a wide variety of
Jack, because you're talking about crossbows, I had the fortune that I was in a kind of television production with a medieval, a really crossbow expert. He's making for all the museums around the world medieval crossbows. He rebuilds, he remakes them, you know, he makes copies of old crossbows. And I didn't know a lot about crossbows, and they were very heavy, 1,500 pounds and so on. And all these bows were all composite bows. Not, I always thought these were steel bows or so, you know, this very powerful. They were all composite. So also the misconception that we say, here we in the West, we hadn't that composite bows, but with crossbows, they had them. You know, so it's very difficult. But if you're interested in that stuff, this guy is on Facebook. His name is Andreas Bichler. He's from Austria.
Yes, I talked to him.
Yeah, you know him. He's a very nice guy, and you know, he makes everything from all the metal, you know, the trigger and all that nut and how they call it, and so on. Very nice.
Maybe he could use horn, because maybe the German or the European horn is not that long, so they couldn't use it for a full size bow, but at least for a crossbow. But of course, this crossbow doesn't have the 28-inch draw, maybe only 20. They made it simply everything a little, and then you could use composite.
And you know, Armin, since the Stone Ages was trade nearly around the world. So you know, in Hungary they have these buffaloes with the longer, that steppy cows, or how they call it. So that's not far from anywhere.
Yeah, one could get it, yeah. But of course, you depend on foreign supply. I don't know if it's how good this is, or how, if you want this as an emperor, you know, that you say, okay, we rely on this country, like we do now with gas from
money,
whatever.
money.
You know, when
you buy it in peacetime.
Yeah, but look at Austria. You don't have your own. You know, when they switch off the gas pipeline, then you have no electricity anymore. So you get too dependent on foreign countries.
Yeah.
So that's why, even with these things.
But there was trade, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Jack, I want to ask you, because of that long power stroke and that heavy poundage, that 330 pounds or so, the 350.
This one's not 300. But...
Yeah, I know. How they braced this very heavy crossbows. 300 pounds, let's say. How they
have a crane or something?
We have depictions from the mural art of the time period showing them with cranks. So if it would be something around 300 pounds, it's either pulled by multiple people, like 2 people, because of how long the prods are. If you see how long the prods are, you can easily get 2 people out there. And that it would be much easier for 2 people to do it than 1 person. Short crossbow prods, because you can't get 2 people to squeeze in there. But with something this large, 2 people would be able to do it. Or and by the way, try to have a lot of slaves and people. So manpower is never an issue.
Maybe these big ones were because in Europe they had them too, just on the fortresses, very stationary crossbows. Maybe, and then you have a kind of unit shooting that, like with a machine gun. You have one guy with the cartridges and one guy shooting and one guy, and so maybe they did it like that. So they were a kind of team, like you say, and they don't walk a lot around with it, but shot from the voice down. You don't know.
And this is the kind of stuff you really need to make to really understand how these things were drawn. So my reproduction with the bamboo and wood prod, it's about 120 pounds. That I can do easily by myself, but I'm later going to make one that's heavier. And what I find is with these longer power stroke, it's harder to pull than a shorter power stroke, because with a short
you have to go very
you have to go up here.
You have no power here up.
No power here, exactly. So you want to find that optimum power stroke. And just from making this myself, I would be able to figure out, you don't want to exceed, for me, my height, you don't want to exceed, like, say, 30 inches for me. So historically, if they were shorter than me, I'd say about 28 inches would be the max draw length, if you treat it like a bow. Because beyond that, for the height of people back in the day, you're not using your legs anymore. Your legs are basically fully extended. So then, and another interesting observation I found, for example, is this thing I never really understood in the beginning before I made it. This strap is not, I just temporarily put a strap on it. Actually secure it, But this thing, before I made this, I never understood why they made this and not just the holes to tie it. And then I now realize,
step with a foot on it.
Not only because of the foot, but it actually increases your maximum draw length, because now when you put your feet here, go a little bit further, about this much.
So it's not that high. It's not that high.
Yeah, it's not that high anymore. And this is something I never thought about. If I just look at it, you have
makes
to
sense.
make it, and then when
so
you
it's two function of this wood.
Holds the bow in place, and makes sense.
And also, I'm impressed with that long power stroke, because if you think about, you can shoot very, very heavy arrows. Because with this European medieval crossbows, the arrows were just like that bolts. And you can shoot a very heavy arrow with this longer draw of the crossbow.
But
go ahead.
No, you first.
Oh, sorry, the draw length certainly allows it to be more efficient. You don't need like 1,000 pounds with a 6-inch power draw length. You don't need that anymore. You can just get something 300 pounds, and it would be about the same power in theory. And that's things I like to test out, not just do a math, calculate it, but also test it out for productions. It's one thing to see things in theory; it's another thing to make it. But I do want to stress that the long power strokes did have disadvantages too. You saw how big that thing was.
Yeah.
But here's a Roman crossbow prod I made based on the stone reliefs in gold.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you see how small it is, imagine a crossbow prod for that. It'd be a lot more compact. You can really use it in formations. That's one big advantage of the shorter ones. So yeah, it might be a lot heavier to span it, but at the same time, you can of course be in a tighter formation. And also the longer power stroke have more friction, so lubrication matters a lot more. From my testing, shooting the bow by hand 120 pounds at 28 versus shooting it with the crossbow, I found there's about a 20 fps reduction with it unlubricated
only because of friction.
Because of how long that rail is. And that's only something I can find by making it myself instead of just looking at these things online and trying to guesstimate it. That's why I like making this stuff.
Yeah, interesting.
But what kind of arrows will they shoot when this bow has 360 pounds? What broomsticks and what wood and what has the spine to be that this arrow doesn't explode on this crossbow?
The spine is actually the least of the concerns because of how short it is. And I'm sure in archery, a 35-inch versus a 28-inch.
So, but they shot still only short ones, not long arrows. So they still shot boats. Okay. Only with a longer power stroke. Okay.
Okay.
The advantage of the shorter ones is you save more wood. Why would you bother with a long one when you can make two?
Because of the weight, because of more impact power. If it's heavier, if it's longer, it's heavier. That's what I mean with that long.
Okay. But you can make it thicker then.
Yeah, also. Yeah.
But of course,
the heavy point,
with a longer power stroke, of course, you compensate for that a bit, of course, because you give this thing so much more energy with it. Yeah, makes sense.
And the armory of the opponents or so in that days, what was it made from steel or leather or I don't know.
I don't do Chinese armor, for example, but I do know they had a variety of like leather, laminar armor, which is different plates laced together. For armor, I recommend someone like Caesar Zhang or Justin Ma. He has done research on Chinese weaponry with armor. I don't do research with armor penetration, which is something I'd be interested to do, but it's beyond just me. One thing for sure.
It's another huge thing, so you can't do everything.
But it's highly connected because if you do research about the weapon, what was used against what type of enemy, so it's very connected. Why they used this type of crossbow? Maybe because the opponents had this or that armory. I don't know.
Yeah, but then you can meet up with Caesar, and then he will build in the armory, and he will shoot it, and then I can do a collaboration. It's fine.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You don't have to do everything by yourself. It's fine. Nice.
Here in my village, because you talked about leather armory, there's a castle, and they have a kind of place where where the visitor can try something like the knight spectre and so. And they had a kind of wooden post with a kind of knight, and the breast is made of kind of like that thick leather. And once I was up there and I had an arrow, and a broadhead arrow with me. No chance. It's stuck in that leather, very thick leather, stops the arrow. You wouldn't believe it.
Oh yeah. Todd did a video, Todd's workshop did a video on boiled leather, and it's surprising how much it stops, even with the crossbow designed for 150 pounds. I'm surprised how much it can stop. I mean, it does go through, but with enough layers, you can save someone's life. So it's interesting to see some of the. It's not like video games. It's like leather this much defense, and then
if it's well made and thick enough, it stops. You wouldn't be able to cut with a sword or to shoot with an arrow through. No way, no way.
you just have to enough. Same with cloth. With enough thickness,
Yeah.
it will stop arrows, and you
Exactly.
do that with the cavalry, or that's mostly to prevent. Like it will usually penetrate, but the goal is at enough distance it can not be a fatal shot. Or with elephants, they would sometimes put cloth, and even with the humans, cloth armor can be effective, depending on how thick it is and the quality, for sure.
Yep.
And we talked about that in Bagan podcasts, because you say it's not little. If you get hit by an arrow, I know this from a report of a doctor from the in the United States in the Indian Wars, where the U.S. cavalry fought the Indians and so on. And he was a surgeon, a doctor, a field doctor from the cavalry, and he said if a guy got hit by these muzzle loader bullets, he fought on. But if he was hit by an arrow, he stopped fighting instantly because he saw the arrow sticking out of his body, and he was done, even if he was not very bad wounded. So
psychological warfare.
Yes, the lethality isn't always the thing. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. Because if you have an arrow sticking out of your body, that's not good. That's not good.
You're done. You're done for the day.
And if you have the bullet embedded, you don't know anything. So, it's not a lot of blood. Okay.
You feel it, but you don't see anything. So you simply continue fighting.
Yeah.
But the arrow, you feel it and you see it, and you think, yeah, thank you. I go home.
Related to what you said, like for a lot of the research I do, you really have to do some empirical testing to really understand how the sources are telling you. And if you have knowledge in the field, it really helps with your research. Like when I was doing research on French longbows, which I'm going to make a video soon, I can see some of the artwork. You can see the U in the bow, even though it's a manuscript illustration of the bow, you can see the heartwood and the sapwood color separations. Now, for someone who doesn't know much about archery, you wouldn't notice that. But for me, I would know, that's you. So you can be confident just from looking at the manuscript to know they're intentionally doing that. And so you can, tell that this artist, has better idea. But at the same time, you look at other work, and sometimes they would talk about, like a medieval art would talk about, ancient times, like 400 AD, about an event, and then they're using modern, like contemporary equipment. So you really have to understand, why are they using like medieval longbows and dressed like medieval people, but they're talking about a story during 400 AD? It doesn't make sense. So you have to filter these sources out and try to get a better context of what you're
and you know what, Jack, we also talked about it in the past. In my opinion, the longbow was made around the world, because think about a simple longbow, not a highly sophisticated composite bow. Because if you think about equipping a big army with composite bows, it's a different thing. But to make some stick bows, and for this one battle they will work, no? So because it's a question of money and for how long you need this weapon, because maybe
in time, if you think you will march against a country in 3 months, no bow builder can build you a composite bow in 3 months, or maybe 1 or 2, but not 5,000 for your arm. So
for sure.
Of course, you take a few U sticks and whatever, or some other wood, and you simply tiller them a little, bow ready.
I always thought maybe also in China, just the noblemen, the big guys had these very nice composite bows, and maybe that foot soldiers had kind of long bows made of bamboo or so.
I have one right now.
Ja, du det früh, huh? Ja, du det früh.
Oh, it's interesting. Interesting.
This is the crossbow prod I was talking about, made of bamboo and wood. It's 120 pounds at 28. It's a crossbow prod, so you can see there's nothing with the handle.
Yeah.
But if it was a hand bow, I would just shave it a little bit near the center. So you can But anyways, yeah, this would have been something. The shape I made for this was based on the Warring States period with the reflex.
Nice.
Yeah.
Some people call it deflex reflex, depending on.
Pretty. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways, yeah, this is something that was found in the Warring States period. And when people think about Chinese archery, they're thinking about medieval period, like maybe Jin Dynasty up to Qing Dynasty. But a lot of these other ones are kind of just forgotten. And they focus a lot on northern history. But there's a lot of other, because China's a huge region. There's a wide variety of bows. So this would be pretty typical, especially in southern China, because of moisture and.
And easier to make, and not affected by moisture and so on. I saw even once a drawing or a painting from Japanese archers. They had not the Yumi, they had kind of like this bow. It was not a asymmetrical bow, it was a symmetrical bow with slightly light recurves like this one. It has to be the same around the world. The first bow everyone invented was, of course, a kind of stick bow, no? Of course.
Yeah, maybe it's a branch that they found on a tree.
Exactly. And then they figured out when the string angle is too much, then it's not so efficient, so we need to do something. They started then slightly heat treating then put a small recurve on, and then they saw all of a sudden, it draws nice and it shoots a little better. Or by accident, maybe the bow was a little crooked, and he thought, nee, it's a crooked, but let's see. I mean, with no weapon for thousands of years all around the world, they had time to experiment and to perfect this thing. So they figured, okay, if we put a little recurve, or we do this, or we do that, and you don't know how many failed attempts they had. We only know the bows they were used. So they tried everything, I guess, with bow and with wood and with whatever.
And think about military. It's the same today. You have to find the less expensive, simplest tool to equip your army.
Yeah. So, this is then called military grade. It doesn't mean it's good. It's just good enough that it's used by the military. And a military grade doesn't mean, oh my God, something very special. It's simply the lowest quality accepted by military. So standards.
And you have seen it in World War II, for example. The first submachine guns and pistols and so they were, how is it called, gefräst? They were machined out of steel blocks, and then they invented that with tin. They made it cheaper and cheaper and simpler and so on. And the Kalashnikov is a kind of like that. It's made out of tin, just a few very solid parts and so on. I have one political question, of course, like always. Was there also stuff destroyed in China with that Mao, that cultural revolution? So was there old archaeological or history stuff also destroyed?
Yes, a lot of, like, for example, during the communist revolution, like archery was basically like removed, with the exception of one boyar who kind of he hid his artwork actually, and then his son, I think it was his son Yang Fuxi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I forgot if it was Yang Fuxi.
You studied Chinese, you should know it.
I forgot the annotation for the
Yang Fuxi, Fuxi, or something.
His family has preserved their traditions there, but it was just by hiding the bow. I think he said I'm not sure, but I think he hit it by cutting it in half or something. So then you can tell someone, hey, this is a piece just firewood.
And it's just a piece of
you would have to do kind of desperate measures just to hide, to make sure they don't know, because they're doing a revolution. But it wasn't just during the 20th century. Not just China, but many period places. They, like if you look at Syria, a lot of the history got erased with the wars. It's not just
even today that ISIS Muslims destroyed these old ruins and old that antique and ancient excavations and so on. Shortly ago I saw a video. They drove by with a kind of building machine and put down that
Mhm.
it stood for 3,000 years, and
It's long enough. Come on.
yeah.
Seriously.
And these Maoists were also
You can
very
use the
crazy.
space and build some flats now,
That
make some
that
money.
Yeah,
that
Joking.
it's
that
sad, but if you look at where I'm from in Canada, a lot of the history here, they're like where I'm from, the local Algonquins, they're basically their archery traditions are almost lost. It's very hard to find a proper Algonquin bow from the past, and you really have to look because people today their history has been erased with history. Or if you look even back, like say the Vikings when they invaded England, a lot of churches were invaded. A lot of history was stolen. A lot of things were looted. So this happens everywhere in history. And as someone doing research, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm very anti-communist, so I say that in that Mao period, that they were really crazy. They destroyed old books, they destroyed everything. So it's a different kind of thing if you say that Algonquin bows are gone because it faded out in history, or you go to a museum and destroy stuff and so on. Different thing, in my opinion.
If it's lost simply because it fades out, yes, or if you really destroy it on purpose,
on purpose,
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, slightly different.
And with history, like I think the history of bow is something least of their concerns when it comes to revolutions. So we sometimes just left over with very few things.
I don't like to blame the Chinese because in the French Revolution they destroyed artworks and stuff, and the guillotine never stood. They just chopped off the heads and all for a long period.
This is where they invented the circular saw blade, because they didn't manage with guillotine, so they did ding ding ding, like you have now when you go in the butcher shop, ding ding ding.
Going back to something you were talking about, composite bows in Europe.
Okay.
I like the word rediscovery of composite bows because, for example, composite bows were known during at least the Bronze Age in Europe, if you count Greece. But if you look, when people talk about medieval period, they say, oh, they discovered composite bows from the Turks. Well, it's really a rediscovery, right? Because of what you were just saying about the history being recycled. Like, for example, the Umayyads, the Arabs who invaded Spain, they reintroduced composite bows again to Europe. So
and even the American or Canadian native Indians had kind of composite bows, with this horn and sinew and so.
Horn and sinew,
These were very, let's say, simple hunter and gatherer cultures, and they had composite bows. So why we shouldn't have them in? But the other thing I think is in Europe there were plenty of different woods they could use, because it's a different thing if you're living on a steppe or like the Mongols or Chinese in some areas where there's not too much wood, or or like the Inuit in the very north, the Eskimos, they don't have a lot of trees to say, oh, let's use this tree or that tree. I don't know.
When it comes to why composite bows, where it's used in Europe, where it's not used in Asia, culture plays a big factor actually. If we, throughout most of Eastern Asian history, an archer, if we're talking like just say China, okay, because I don't want to overgeneralize, just China specifically, because I know it more. The archer were the elite, especially during the medieval and late time periods. The archer was the elite, so they had the best equipment available. Peasants at the time would have something like.
I'm sure his flat is only 30 square meter, but he runs away and after half an hour he comes back. I can see that. Yeah. You were not prepared. Oh, repeating crossbow, nice.
Peasants at the time would have basic, things like for a bow, you would sometimes just laminate different layers.
Like a spring leaf.
Yeah.
Yes, something like this is super easy to make. Anyone can make it. I made it. So you can make it, turn it into a repeating crossbow, but I just want to show you can also make a bow out of it.
just
flat
boards.
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This
And
could have been easily used by peasants
By
for
the
self
peasants, yeah.
militia,
Mhm.
but the elite would have had more, form bows.
Sophisticated stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I always said, sorry, I always said, a kind of wooden self bow in any
Mm.
variation uh, will get broken or weak at some
Mhm.
point in his
Yeah.
life, in his
Yes.
in his life.
Mhm.
But the composite bow, if you take care, you can inherit it to your
Mm.
son or so, because if you take care for a composite bow, it never will break
Mm.
or
When you take care of it, of course,
yeah.
it's in the nature that it lasts longer than a simple stick. Yes, of course.
So, because you said in the medieval times, and so they had composite bows too in Europe, maybe that highly praised English longbow was a kind of simplification, just because there it was different. That archers were peasants, and they
Mm.
were auxiliary troops. They were not nobles or big guys, So
Mm.
they carved out some sticks. Yeah, money. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, something like this.
Yep.
I read somewhere it was like 100 or 1,000 bows equals one halberd. Maybe that was just a really fancy halberd, but
Mhm.
it gives you an idea how the price difference we're talking about. I wish prices were that cheap now for a U longbow.
Yeah, of course. Everybody would have one or two or 200.
and
Yeah.
and we talked before, this who knows, this wonder weapon, that English longbow you see in every movie, and maybe that idea of the superior weapon was
Mhm.
created back then to scare the
Of
enemies
course.
of the English,
Yeah, it was a wonder weapon. I always wonder how could it be so successful.
no
Well,
but
I'm
of course,
joking.
I mean,
but
Yeah.
50
always
pounds, that's
but
a lot of power.
but
Mm.
they did war propaganda also back then.
Yeah.
When they used the English
Mhm.
longbow, they had the same war propaganda like we have.
Yeah.
We have a wonder weapon. You will see. We beat
And,
you up. No?
and we read it now and we think, oh my God, the English
Yeah,
longbow. Ooh, yeah.
yeah. And there's a kind of, like with the Asiatic bows, there's a kind of religion with English longbows. A war bow. Oh,
Mm.
and this and that.
Mm.
Yeah.
For sure. I think, like if you talk about European bows during the medieval period, it simply comes down to culture. Like the archers weren't the elite in Western Europe. Eastern Europe is a different story, like the Byzantines, But with Western Europe, like these were peasants we're talking about that were
Yeah.
trained when especially in the English cultures, but even the French, even Germans had bows, longbows. There's evidence of that. But it would have been, someone rich would have been a knight with full armor, with someone that's knighted. So they wouldn't really use a bow. Maybe they would use a crossbow on the side, but
I don't think so.
melee cavalry.
Mm.
They had that, like that Japanese samurai or so. They had a high how you call it, codex of how they fight, and a peasant was not allowed to kill a knight. He could capture him or so, but not kill him,
Mm.
and so on. So I don't think, they used their lances and spears and their swords and maybe some maces, but that was it, no, in my opinion.
Yeah, for the knights, what I heard, because we have still a few knights here in Malta, it was simply not well seen that you use a bow and arrow because you need to face your enemy. He needs to stand in front of you and then you use your lance or your sword. But if you shoot him from a distance, it's a sign of weakness. I guess then they realized that they can't win anything. That's why they hired then archers from Crete and from Sicily, so that they had a few archers on the side.
And a second thing, every, let's say, dumb guy can make himself a kind of self bow and use it as a weapon. So it's if you have unhappy people in your country and so on, think about that Robin Hood stories and so on. Every guy can go to the woods and make himself a kind of stick bow and can shoot. Yeah. But it's another thing to to smith a sword or so. No?
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think what made the English longbow really famous, this is my own opinion, but looking at some of the videos I've seen in testing, these things can penetrate riveted chainmail with gambeson at a reasonable distance with enough draw weight. So and once you reach that critical draw weight, we're talking, 12th century knights, the 13th century knights, their riveted chainmail are now vulnerable. So I think that was probably what made it famous, is how powerful they were, especially when the Welsh were using it against the Normans or the English before the 100 Years' War.
Yeah.
This is a time period when riveted chainmail was still commonly used. And to see an arrow penetrating that, must have been terrifying for the morale.
Because later, as you say, in the War of Roses or in the 100-Year Wars, they couldn't penetrate the armory.
No, with plate armor, especially when you glance at it, it's much harder to penetrate.
And they had, I saw once a very nice not a documentary, an interview in an English museum, and they had very nice kind of deflectors at the armory, and so when an arrow comes in, it would be deflected, and so that, like you say, like with that, how you call it, with that, not a straight blade, but a little
in an angle,
pointed, angle, and so on.
Yeah, of course. I think that chainmail is not so good. I mean, every proper protection, of course, against cutting.
Yeah,
that's why you still have butchers have still this metal chainmail gloves.
Also, that amprons, that chainmail amprons, the butchers here over they have it because they don't cut themselves in their stomach or so.
So for this it's fine, but for an arrow, when you have a bodkin on it, goes through like nothing. So proper leather armory, and you have no chance with your bodkin arrowhead.
Yep.
With enough thickness, it's important for sure.
Yeah.
But I think riveted chainmail was at the time that it was used, it was really important. I think it was introduced by the Celts or during the Roman.
Yeah, but this is what we said too. It's like nowadays, one country has now this tank, and then the other one develop whatever a defense system for this, and then they come up with this weapon, and they develop a defense system. It was the same there. They saw, they have now whatever bow and arrow, they penetrate. We need some protection, and they started developing accordingly. And so this was always like Aufrüstung.
Of course. It could happen once by surprise. If the enemy don't know you have that powerful bows, or the archers didn't know that they have very nice plate armor. So by surprise, there could be an advantage. But on the long run, they always reacted, of course, like today. If you invent a bazooka, the tanks have one more steel plate or two more, I don't know.
There's always a competition with the technology. But chainmail itself has a long history, and it does surprise me how long chainmail is. Perhaps people just didn't bother to train archers to have that draw weight, because you need a certain, 50 pounds even with the bodkin would unlikely penetrate the chainmail. But you need that certain amount of draw weight. So maybe the archers of the time just didn't realize until a certain point. Who knows? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And what is a certain draw weight in your opinion? 80, 100 pounds, 120?
I think
it's distance, depends on arrow, there's so many factors. But if we're just talking in the context of Mary Rose bows with chainmail, I'd say about 100 pounds you would be able. There's videos on it, and you can see that like even 160-pound war bow at a certain distance, the amount of penetration would be a lot less with riveted chainmail. But that's 160 pounds. So for me, I'd say about 100 pounds. It depends on the time.
I would say it starts up over 80. Above 80, it starts to get interesting.
To say to get a number, it's very hard to.
How long ago did you start with archery, and when did you start building up, or were you directly capable of throwing a 100-pound bow?
I started archery when I was probably when I was 8 by making a bow with a stick and a string. Kids at the time were using BB guns and they were shooting. You know, I didn't have a BB gun at the time, so I made.
Ooh.
And Jack, you got it from the movies or the idea?
I don't know. I was 8 years old. Probably got it from some other guy.
Mm.
I'm not sure
But-
how, but just probably with
The idea to get into archery, it was just because you had no BB gun? No.
well, I was a kid, and I think I saw someone with a bow, like with elastic band with a string stick, and then I copied him. I think that's how
Okay.
it started at the time.
Okay. Okay.
But
Nice.
but obviously I only started. I started archery later when I was 13. I started archery in the Olympic side. I got my certification for Olympic archery to teach level 1 in Canada here. But then I found out I'm just not interested in competitive archery, so I never got into that. I was always the guy that just liked history, and then I met this Boyer who was making bows here locally in Ontario, and then he introduced me a whole new world of just making bows. He was making like fiberglass laminates, but also wood bows with sinew back wood bows. So I made my first bow with him, a sinew backed wood bow. I don't have it anymore. I lost it, but it was about 40 pounds. Back to sinew. He helped me, of course, with the work.
Sorry to interrupt, the kind of native Indian style.
Yes, here in Canada we say indigenous, or we don't use Indian.
I know.
But some people call it Native American. But yes, that's the kind of bow that I got into first, and then from there it was just later on when I was I think was right after I graduated high school, I started posting videos on YouTube, and this was around the same time that Lars Anderson uploaded his first videos that made him popular. And at the same time, I uploaded a video explaining. I was really young at the time, by the way. Explaining how he was shooting based on my ideas at the time, and I was saying about enlarged nocks and how he uses it holding his hands. Nowadays, if I look back, it's a bad video if I look back, because I had like 8 years of editing experience, but at the time, like looking back, yeah, some of the things I still agree with, but yeah, that was the video that got me into YouTube, because I got like 600,000 views, and part of the ideas I still agree with, but looking back, I think with Lars Anderson, I think in the beginning he would have likely used enlarged nocks, but then later, as he got good, with the
He refined his technique. Yes, he did a lot of research with different nocks. He had 100 different nock types and was always trying to perfect. And then at the end, you break it down to the very bare basics once you know what you're doing.
They forgot nocks.
Yes.
Or knockless nocks.
But that was the video that really got my YouTube channel kickstarting.
Nice.
And then after that, I went traveling. And when I was traveling, I met some archers and bowmakers. I met Peter Decker in the Netherlands. I met Richard Head in England while I was traveling. And I really got into getting more exposed in the historical side of archery. And when I got back from my travels, I think that's when I really started to get into war bows, because I wanted to practice like a historical archer. And I don't know when I made the jump exactly to 100 pounds. I never like measured it like something like that. But I would be pulling elastic bands, going to the gym, and then pulling heavy bows. And eventually, when I realized I was able to pull at a certain length, obviously struggling with poor form, of 110 pound at 28, that's when I started a bow. That's when I realized this is pretty interesting stuff, and I want to go, pursue it. And of course, when I first started, I was like, oh, if you probably saw the video, I was like, I like this with that bow. And that's when I started it. I posted on Facebook groups, and people met me. They of course commented on how bad my form was, which I agreed, pretty bad. But over time now, especially during the COVID years, I've worked up, and now like I really focus, try to get my form good. So I'm able to like now I'm working on my 150-pound bows. So right now, my goal is to reach up to 200 pounds.
Wow.
I think that is one of my goals, but I'm still pretty far away from that. It's one thing to pull like it's like before I pulled a 140-pound before. It's one thing to pull it. It's another thing to shoot it with form, with control, and to do it repetitively. And recently, I'd say the last year, I really got into that, and now I can do that with a 140-pound. But say 3 years ago when I first started, I was just barely able to pull it. So, you know, I think it's nice to see that progression. And but once you hit to like, I found I'm in this peak where just to increase a pound now, it takes a lot more effort. Yeah, I noticed now, like trying to get from 140 to 150 with form, with good control, it's a lot harder than jumping from the 80-pound to 120-pound. That I think most healthy men can be able to do that, from the 80 to the 100-pound range. So I support, you know, a lot of the sources saying they're pulling that weight. It makes sense from what I've seen, especially if you look at people in the gym. Like it's quite reasonable. It's just a lot of people today when they practice archery, they're looking at it in the context of bow hunting or Olympic archery. So then there's no point doing 80 to 100 pounds, especially with a compound bow. There's no point. So then that's why people think you're doing really ridiculous stuff. But I always try to have context here.
But you're right with modern tackle, because back then, because of Howard Hill and that guys, they used very heavy bows, or Sexton Pope and Arthur Young. Arthur Young shot a 90-pound English. Howard Hill had this flight record with a 172-pound English longbow.
Wow.
So, have you ever seen that picture, Jack? Howard Hill. He jumped while shooting. So there's a very famous picture. He's in the air, lifted up with every 2 feet, and shoot this heavy 172-pound English longbow.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen that picture, but I know who Howard Hill is. I've seen more recent people, like people that inspire me, like Joe Gibbs, Mark Stretton, Justin Ma. These people, you know, inspire me to heavyweights. But I haven't seen. I don't know too much about the archers from the 20th century.
Howard Hill, when he was in Africa for big game, he had 115-pound bows with him and so on. So he used very heavy bows.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
What I realized, for me, we have a 70-pound longbow here, a tri-laminated bow from Flagella Day. And I can pull this bow. I'm not really trained, so I don't go to the gym or something, but 70 pounds I could shoot a few times, not for an hour. Then my draw gets a little shorter and shorter every time. But if you would give me now a 33-inch draw bow with 70 pound, I would not be able to pull it back there. So, you know, that here it's fine, maybe 29, but then going, you know, like Manchu or whatever back there, it's a completely different story. So I don't know.
With the Manchu bow, a 70-pound Manchu bow, it would be about the same feel initially as a 100-pound longbow, because of how high the force draw curve is in the beginning. Yeah. But also, I find there's this optional draw length about, forget about your anchor, how you use your hands, but about, for everyone, it's about here where the things get hard.
When the hand goes beyond the shoulder or outside the shoulder somewhere here, then it gets
your big muscles are gone.
Yeah, there's nothing left. And then I tried with a Yumi once, you know, and then whatever 38-inch draw, it was only 35 pounds, but no way. It really takes something extra special training, and not for me anymore.
Yeah,
I'm too old for that stuff. How old are you now, Jack?
I don't do long draws either. Really weights, I'm about 32 here.
Okay. But 32 is already quite a long draw, so it's fine.
I'm shooting 26.
Some draw I do maybe 33, but beyond the 33, with
Mm,
heavy bows, I can't do it. But
no
with
chance.
lighter
Yeah.
bows like Manchu 35, I can do
Mhm.
60 pounds. No problem. But I've never tried it with heavy bows.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
60.
but I think all these warbows, when you see sometimes this video of English warbow shooters, you know, they hear and then they let go directly. You know, they simply pull the arms down until the fingers get ripped off. So I don't know how long their draw is, but I think they don't even draw 28 inches all the time.
Yeah, it depends on the person, and I'd say 28 to 32. It obviously depends on the height of the person.
Yeah.
In that respect.
Mm.
Sure.
I mean, I have students here, you know, I have a 50-pound bow, you know, and it comes to the range and you see him drawing 24 inches, his 50-pound bow, you know, the 50-pound at 28, so it's bow has whatever, 35 pounds at his draw length, but he shoots a 50-pound bow.
But I mean, you know, in your days and in mine, when I started archery,
Mm,
a man, an upgrown man, started with 50, and the women started with 40 pounds.
mhm,
Women, in most cases, stayed with the 40 to 45 pounds because they didn't work up so a lot like men. But it was very usual, no? In your area,
in my time, I started with this, and it was like
compound.
35 or something, and a compound, you know, in the beginning, oh my God, and then easy.
A 35-pound compound bow.
I don't know what does this brown bear from Fred Bear, 40 pounds maybe, in the lowest
Okay, you can screw it down. So
yeah, I'm screwed anyway, yeah, so that's why it doesn't matter.
You don't need to practice heavyweights. I like what you're doing already.
I can't. No, I had a bike accident 4 or 5 years ago, and my clavicle was broken, but it was not completely. It broke like this, and it grew together like this. Since then, normally I had 29-inch max draw. Now my max draw is 28 inches because everything got a little shorter. And when I shoot anything beyond 50 pounds, this pressure to my shoulder, I'm not trained well enough, and then it hurts like hell. So that's why sometimes I have a bow and it's too heavy, and then the shoulder simply doesn't work. So I would need to work out way more for it. And
everyone has his arguments why he.
of course, yeah, it's a nice excuse. You know, I always blame this stupid car driver. He drove over a white line.
I really respect what you're doing.
Thank you.
You don't need to go heavy. I mean, there's no. Some people like heavy. Some people like light.
Exactly.
There's no reason why you have to pull heavy. I just think, especially with an injury, like for sure. Like I had an injury before as well, and I know it's, it was painful for many months because I overexerted myself, and I've learned to really make sure I have good form before I move up.
And I'm lazy, so I admit I'm lazy. So I don't want to work out, go in a gym and work out. Of course, I mean, I said I can shoot 70 pounds for a while, and then it starts hurting. Of course, if the muscles would be there, you would take the pressure off the bones, and then might be better. But yeah,
I have one for you, Armin. I have a nice heel style, 72 pounds at 26.
Oh, okay. My draw, it's an 80 pounds. Oh, thank you. But you most probably it's built for 26-inch draw, right?
Sorry?
Most probably it's built for a 26-inch draw, because when you have your hill style bow, you make it according to your draw length. So when it's 26, it doesn't want to go to 27. As Peter said last time, a full drawn bow was Saxon Pope said this, right? A full drawn bow is 7/8 broken or something. You said something like
if it's a good bow,
if it's
because
a good bow,
it's not overbuilt, it's not too much mass and wood on the limbs.
Yeah.
So it's always on the edge to break.
Mm-hmm.
And this one would be the best bow, of course.
Yeah, of course. Best
Fastest bow.
efficiency, of course, then you get the maximum out of it.
Yeah.
I had this interesting thing. I had 3 same longbows, very cheap longbows from Malta Archer. He got them kite from Buck Trail, and a 25, a 30, and a 40 pounds. And then you could see with the 25, it's kind of like the poundage of a snake bow. And I knew, okay, 30 meters, like here. And then the arrow flew 10 meters short, because the 25 simply didn't get in its length, in its mass limbs, not enough energy on the arrow. The 30-pound was nice to shoot, was drawing nice and shooting nicer. The 40-pound would have been nice, but it's stacked at 26, 27 inches already. So there you reach the limit of this bow. I would not shoot a 40 because you can't even pull 28. So then you see how these bows work. It was very interesting to see that the 25 really like like this. It's interesting.
Well, draw weight is not everything. It's a lot about limb efficiency. If you look at a lot of the steel crossbows, they would have like 1,000 pounds, but they're not efficient at all because of how heavy the weights are. Something like this, it's very. You can see it's so thick on the limbs. This is not an efficient bow. I based it off of the drawings on the stone art, but yeah, like it all depends on bow design. A 50-pound bow, depending on the design, can shoot in a wide variety of performance. You can get 200 something FPS.
And I wouldn't say only just design, or maybe you call it design, but how good the bow maker is, how fragile he can make this bow, how tiny, how how slim and how light are the limbs are.
Yeah,
so that
of course.
Yeah.
It all counts.
And a good bow, because you say this bow was started to stack. A good bow, in my opinion, has to have kind of the full draw weight when it's just braced. From the beginning, it shouldn't go up like this, because then the power stroke will be the
go
same.
Down.
There's a lot of power, and then it goes down, the power stroke.
Yeah.
But if at brace head the bow is
already there, but the draw curve goes up linear and not in a curve. Yes.
Yeah.
This would be stacking. This would be not enough. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is the opposite because of the deflex shape. The initial draw weight is very low in the first few inches. So something like this, 120 pounds to 28, compared with Joe Gibbs' U-bow, it actually shoots about 20 FPS. Maybe my release is worse than Joe Gibbs, probably is. But it does shoot about 20 FPS slower than the U-bow, because I think it's because the deflex shape, and it's not it's laminated.
Yeah, then the power stroke is high at the beginning, as you said, Pete, and then it gets, of course, weaker because it's simply the opposite of what you draw.
Yes, the last 20 inches of the draw, there's no power because the curve goes like that.
But on the other side, what is always important, and that's why in Asiatic countries they have katra and whatever, is the initial that you give this bow. And even Howard Hill was jumping when he was shooting his flight bow to give this momentum, everything possible to the arrow, to propel the arrow directly from the release away, and then the rest is simply magic.
But he was to shoot. He shot a world record. So
yes,
it's a different thing.
With a long bow. How long was the 400 meters?
About
Yeah.
But it was a wooden longbow.
Yeah.
That's impressive for a wood bow.
Yeah. But you know that there's in England a story that there was a village, it completely burned down, and then they said where the church is, an archer shall stay, and you shoot an arrow, and where this arrow lands, we will build the next church. And they built the church 2 miles away.
I think they exaggerated a little bit there.
Yeah. No, yeah.
That's war propaganda.
Of course. They shoot 2 miles. Oh my God.
There's one
text, literally.
There's one well-known story about an English archer who shot not an English, a Turkish, and then I did a little research because I said I don't remember how far, very far. I thought, oh really? And then I found out the British ambassador was visiting the Ottoman Empire or the or Istanbul or something, and they showed that to him. So he went home, and like journalists today, he had to have a big story. Oh, they can shoot 600 meters. I don't know. So I also sometimes, because I'm a big fan of Howard Hill, I did research and I thought, okay, when he did this and that, which persons were how you call it, Zeugen, witnessed this. So the outfitter, he paid, the camera guy, he paid. So I don't like to say he's a fraud, but you know, he made a living out of his legend while he was alive. So
he made a legend out of himself.
yeah, you have to be a saint if you have the opportunity. You have to be a saint, not to say, "Oh, I hit that deer at 80 yards." And you have seen it.
Yeah, but nowadays they have these flight competitions, and they are regular, you know, from officials and measured and everything.
That's official. That's official. Yeah.
Of course. Or like with the speed shooting, now we have Jeff OCP going to the Guinness Book of Records because he shoots knockless arrows, 5, I think, in a second or something. And he will do it then for the Guinness Book of Records, and there the officials and everything set up, and
then it's okay.
Then it's legit because they still don't believe him that he can do it.
Did he do it? Or did Jeff do it?
Yeah, he has a video, but then most people say he slowed down the video or whatever, or he sped up the video when he shoots. But he shoots knockless arrows, this native way. No knocks on it, and he has them there, and he shots like this. But he doesn't do anything else since years. He's a martial artist, so he knows his body. He is flexible, he's strong, he's fast. I think he can do it. So, but many people think he sped up. Then he took him maybe 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds, and he sped it up. That it's 1 second.
But 5 arrows in 1 second, I wouldn't believe.
That's really difficult. You need like strong reflexes.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough to comment on that. 3 arrows a second is possible. I've seen 3 arrows a second.
Or did he shoot 3 arrows? 5 arrows? I think 5 arrows, right?
I don't know.
In this video. 3 arrows is boring. Everyone can shoot 3 arrows in a second.
Everyone, yeah.
I think. And last new video, he does everything blindfolded, looking in the other direction. So what? And we are all like, we still look at the target with open eyes. So what are we archers?
Because we don't have that forgotten techniques.
So, okay.
Well, shooting that fast, like I don't think it's practical for warfare. It would just be more.
Yeah. That's what I say. I see close to zero situation where you can use this ability.
The thing is, one explanation at least is because arrows are not very fast. So when you shoot them on a distance 50, 60 meters, you see the arrow coming and you can dodge maybe an arrow. But if this archer shoots now 3 arrows before the first, like in Saracen archery written, on a distance of kind of 80, 90 meters, he shoots 3 arrows, and the first one, okay, you dodge, but then the next one is coming in, and the next one, and then you have a problem.
But you also could raise your shield. No?
With volley fire, that's the point, because you have so many arrows coming at you, and you're in an infantry spike formation.
So it's not in a formation, I guess. It's, I think, more like one-on-one. I don't know. That's there comes historical warfare again. But I think like you always said, Peter, that they came from the flanks, and there was a row of archers. They shot only 40, 50 meter distance or something. That was fine. So it's not that the English longbowmen only always shot 300 meters and in a big.
Also, was I said these long shots. If it's a very long range shot, you raise your shield, and then.
Yards, it's very ineffective for anything practical, but it would be a morale. It would be a morale.
And like we said, if you hit the horses and so on, there's a lot of chaos going on. That's no question about that. There's no question about that. But you know, where's a situation like you say? I mean, man-to-man shooting against each other in a battle. That's
so rare.
That's Hollywood.
I don't know.
Opinion.
Duels happen, like in Sasanian, like during the Sasanian Arab Wars, for example. There were duels that actually decided warfare, but they were.
But is it true? Is it true, Jack? It's written in that book. We don't know if it's true, if it ever happened.
Or is it propaganda, like the other one with 2 miles? The English also shot 2 miles. Ooh, propaganda! They shoot 2 miles long arrows. So they shoot 3 arrows in 3 seconds.
Maybe they did duel each other. Who knows? I mean, who knows? But we can't prove it.
Yeah. And you see in Indian archery, in Danur Vidya, they shoot 3 arrows in one time. to
Yeah,
I always think, you know, you split the poundage of the bow in 3 arrows. So if I have a 60 pound, for every arrow I have then 20 pounds left. So it doesn't do a lot, but maybe it's again only psychological warfare that 3 arrows come flying at you. So you most probably don't hit 3 different targets with one shot. So
and that fast shooting is maybe useful in a whorehouse or bar fight. if you
but look in Austria, lockdown, everything was locked down, but the whorehouses were open. So see, better be prepared.
If you need a fast shot.
Well, shooting fast, there is context. Like something like this, you can make videos on how fast you can really shoot.
But Jack, would you be very afraid of this type of crossbow if you're an enemy? I don't know. As you say, for disturbing the troops and for making chaos, okay. But you know, this kind of
but think of it, you stand on your own wall, you have 20 archers with these crossbows, and you want to go there, and they simply fire continuously. Next one, you have no chance to breathe down there.
This is mostly a peasant weapon for militia. You can think of it like people today with a bolt action rifle in Africa, or today person with a beat up AK-47 in the in warfare. It's not like a standard issue infantry weapon. It was something niche, you know. During the ancient time periods, there were heavier ones too. But this specific design is too light. It's only about 40 pounds with such a short power stroke.
Yeah, but if you think about, if you're in a fortress and there are guys climbing up ladders, you know, and you shoot down with that type, and they have incoming little arrows, and they're on a ladder, you know, climbing up at the wall. So maybe this is useful too. Yeah.
I think it's more useful as a self-defense with this specific design, but you can upgrade that design to get heavier. Like if I put the 120-pound prod in this, if I use this instead for that design and beef it up, I can get a pretty heavy weight. It's just my reload time would be a lot slower because I would have to
think about that. It's true with every kind of crossbow. But if you have a usual bow, a long bow or a Saracen or an Asiatic bow or whatever, if there are the ladders on the wall and they're climbing up, you can't shoot down like that. But with a crossbow, you can.
I do my charmaki. I trained my guy from.
But you expose yourself if you're on the wall and shooting down like that.
I don't expose I expose only my shoulder. That's why they practice charmaki. It's a special technique for you shoot like this. I shoot like ping, and I'm all going. I don't leap over the whole thing.
I have seen that guy's video last week. Was Malta Archery with turning and
not the turning, the charmaki. We tried the charmaki shooting down from.
But he also did something with crouching down and turning and very dramatic, like a dance.
It's application. It's simply a stance. It's like in normal fighting. You don't wait until the punch is delivered. You go directly into the punch, and it's the same. You see an income. You duck, and while you duck, you turn around and you shoot at this enemy. It's simply a matter of application.
Behind you when you're running away.
No, you don't run away. Maybe you stand behind a wall and you go out of the wall.
He turned around.
That's simply a combination of martial arts stance and archery. That's all.
I think in the context of people climbing up walls, you're already in a very desperate situation. Likely, at that point, you're trying to push the ladders away, grab boiling water, throwing rocks. It's not like
stones,
anything at that point, like throwing furniture, dead bodies. Like it would be a very chaotic scene. I don't think there would have been any regular doctrine. If so, people wouldn't be applying those doctrines.
They used everything, of course.
Of course.
For sure.
But when you run out of furniture, it's always still good. You can shoot like this, you know. And it's a common shooting technique in Arab countries, in Turkey. Because they used it when the enemy came through the well. You can't expose yourself because any enemy will shoot you. So you simply stand there and boom, fling an arrow and go away.
Of course, like in the circus maybe, but not.
No, in real life, you have no idea. This English longbowmen, because with a complicated long stick, you know, they think they rule the world. Madonna.
and then Jack, and then I just waiting when they start to wear skirts and like that, then shoot like that, and or paint your
It's
fingernails.
even when you shoot backwards from horseback, it's a beneficial thing to do because you don't need to turn all your body around.
Yeah.
It's simply application. And
Yeah,
for
they all
me,
wear
for
acrobats.
me as a martial artist is always I better know 120 different
Yeah.
techniques and only use 20 of them instead of only have 20 and I would need 21.
Of course. And as we said before, you get more self-confident if you can do
Yes.
this and that.
Yeah.
No question about that. But if it's useful, I don't
Let's
know.
hope that you never have to use it, but if
Yeah,
you have, you can use it.
You'd be in a very desperate situation if
Of course. At the end, you never know where you end up. With all the zombies now coming, you will see.
Yeah, but I think archery and military warfare was mostly used, like volley fire or with horse archers, like Parthian tactics, like entice. Like the goal of horse archery was never to really to cause enough casualty, with exceptions like Battle of Carre. But there are typically they're used to tease the opponent and then bring them to track them to a place of ambush. Like the Mongols, for example, they were excelled at that. They use the horse archers to annoy the enemy, chase at them, and then fight them at an advantage.
Lead them in a trap. They're leading the enemy in a trap. Yeah.
And again, another thing interesting you might think is how can these small horses be able to be faster than these European horses? Well, actually, one thing you have to consider is the Mongols, like they can turn around and most likely they would have shoot the horses if they come too fast.
Of course.
So it's more like crowd control where the faster ones that are coming, they would get shot at with arrows and then they would slow down because the horse has arrows stuck in their bodies. And there are, of course, horses with full body armor, but they would be so few that in a mass formation that they would not be effective if it's just 10 of them that are fully armored, and they would be a lot slower if they're armored. So
exactly.
The only way to catch them would be with.
Now imagine you have a horde of horses or riders running after you, and you shoot 2 or 3 of the first horses, and the other ones all struggle and have to jump over it, and causes already chaos again.
Yeah. And if your goal is to lead them somewhere, you want to keep make sure they're in the pace. So
of course that
context, the bow is quite useful for kind of like hurting them.
And when you think about the Mongols, I think while they did their big conquering and so on, I think in most cases they also attacked villages. They rode to a village and shot into the on the streets and so on. So they it was terror also.
Yes,
I think so.
Raiding is very important in any warfare. Even the English longbowmen during 100 Years' War, they employed a lot of chevauchés, which are raiders that rarely get mentioned. They applied a lot of psychological warfare and to supply the army. These are kind of, I think, sometimes forgotten about, but they're quite important for warfare to cause. It's not about casualties all the time. It's about morale.
Yeah. I don't think there were many battles with horse archers fighting. Of course, there were some, but
not some. It was not a general thing, of course.
If you are on a campaign and you destroy some villages, a small city, and the big boss or the nobleman or the king of this kingdom, the terror and psychological warfare, maybe they surrender because everything is done, and so you don't know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, a lot of the casualties are actually not during warfare, but while you're pursuing the enemy or executing the prisoners. That's actually a significant portion of casualties. In ancient and medieval warfare. Modern warfare is a lot different, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But I think in World War II it was the same. They came, remember that the Germans and so they went to Poland or to Russia, and they they attacked villages and they shot, the teacher and the priest and the mayor. And then they knew, okay, that's serious. That's not fun. So the next village, they surrendered instantly because they knew these guys are not, not, not,
Not messing around.
are not joking around. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because we talked about the English longbow, I told it in the past. It's on YouTube. I don't remember, but I can search it out and maybe I can send it to you, Jack. He said there were kind of diaries of French knights who fought in the Hundred Years' War. And that guy was the how is it called, the curator of a kind of armory museum of that period. And he said this volley firing was of course done, but it was not the main purpose. uh, like Armin said, they were on the flanks and shot into the battle from the flanks, and not too far, maybe 30 to 50, 60 meters. And they just shot at the open visors of the knights, if they had their visor open or at the joints or so, because they couldn't penetrate that full armored knight, that plate armored knight. So they shot just in the faces if they could, if the visor was open. Or at the neck or here at its joints, everywhere where the armory was kind of had a gap.
But 50 meters, you need to be quite a good archer because this knight is moving.
And he kind of proved this with the armory, because they said, look, these helmets were not especially made for protecting from volley fire, from incoming arrows like that, but more if they are straight on. So it was a nice thing.
I read a battle about Sasanian Arab wars, and there was it was, I think, Sasanian versus no, it was the Arabs versus the Numidians, and it was the Battle of Lost Eyes. So apparently the Arabs were so well armored that the only thing that they were losing mostly were their eyes against these Numidian archers. But it's interesting to see like how much armor they had. It all plays out and factors in. It depends for sure. I think we need to do more testing to find out because so much.
And you can imagine, if you're fighting with your lance or your spear or your sword, it's not nice to have the visor closed, because you can't see to the left who is here and there. So I think they tended to open it if it was possible.
The English king fighting against Normans, according to legend, lost his eye, and I think it was killed eventually because of that wound that affected him.
With William the Conqueror, like in that area, yeah.
Was it his neck or his face? I don't remember. But anyways,
I think in the eye. In the eye.
So that, but that did not kill him immediately. Of course, it disabled him. Yeah. But over time, I think it was a few days, then the infection really eventually killed him.
That's when they invented the visors, because the Normans had just that simple helmets with that nose protector, no? Yeah, if you see that on the tapestry of Bayeux, you can see the armory they wore back then.
Yes.
And these guys were Vikings too, because that Normandy was given from the French to the Vikings. So
yes.
I don't know. I just imagine I have my helmet, visor or not visor, and one of these 1,000 grain arrows only hits me full speed on the head, not hurting me, but I think I would be done then, because you got a whiplash, and I don't know. I would not fight afterwards. So I would okay, I go home because it's.
I'm done.
I'm done.
I don't know if you know it, Jack. With this Robin Hood movie starring Errol Flynn from 1938.
He was not born, only you.
But I'm sure you know that old Robin Hood movie with Errol Flynn.
Yes.
Of course. And Howard Hill did the stunt shooting because they hadn't CGI and so on back then. So he shot blunt arrows at the knights. They're riding on horseback, and they had this that coat of arms,
Yeah.
and behind that they had a steel plate, and on the steel plate they had a piece of balsa wood, so the arrow would stick in the balsa wood, and he used a 70 to 80 pound bows, and they said the stuntman said they knocked them off from the horse.
Yeah.
They hadn't to act. I'm hit by an arrow and I'm falling off the
Really,
horse.
yeah.
They fall off from the horse.
It
You
didn't
know?
need to act. It was just natural.
Yeah.
You can't-
And if you know that all these shots were real done, then you're watching that movie with a different view.
Yeah.
Because
That's a lot of respect.
you see a guy looking out from the door, and near to his face, chuck, an arrow struck into the wood, in the wooden frame.
Would be nowadays impossible to do on a film set ever again.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so much CGI now. Like if you look at the most recent Robin Hood movie,
it's
there's so
only
much CGI.
only CGI. We had this the Dove Keepers movie here, and I had to train the actors, and then the stunt coordinator said, "But look, only let them shoot the bow. We don't need arrows because they simply we put the arrow later." I said, "Look, I then did simply into this hotel room where we did the training. I brought a small target and some arrows. That guys, you need to know the feeling how it is when you release an arrow. When you stand there and dry fire a bow, it's a complete different experience." So we shot a few arrows and hit a few holes in the wall. But But then later they only dry fired, ruined. They broke every bow they had because they only dry fired these cheap fiberglass bows. Of course, they were broken. I told them, listen, you need to put at least a rubber band instead of the string. Then the bow will still bend a little, but the rubber band bends more. It's still enough for the movie, but it's safer. But they didn't listen, and then in the face of the main actor, one bow exploded, and then was oh my god.
It's even more dangerous. Yeah, to dry fire bows. Why not just use actual arrows and then you change the scene?
Yeah.
Or
You cut. It's simply about the cutting. I can shoot an arrow and you cut, and the other one has an arrow in his hand, and you cut exactly there.
But that's old school. That's old school.
It's how you make it, and it's always still realistic. Or even when they throw a knife, you see him throwing, and the other one, he has it. You don't see it with the slow motion and the impact. Of course not. The CGI can do this.
Well, I see a lot of crossbows, like full-size compound crossbows, with the string cocked in the movie, and that just sometimes with the arrow, and that just terrifies me. I don't know if they modified it or not.
Wow.
Because
you think about Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
with the single action revolver, he shot the
camera woman. Yeah.
I see, like that's a real bolt and a real crossbow with cock. Maybe they modified
it's a lot in Walking Death. There's a lot this guy with the crossbow, always the crossbow cocked and an arrow on.
But I think maybe this cocking mechanism is a complete that the string is simply not moving somewhere, that the trigger is not working.
Or
you're trusting the mechanism for not getting sued.
And with the crossbow, you wouldn't see if it's a rubber band.
Yeah. Okay.
You can tell. Like you can tell that's a real. Like
when I did also for some show stuff and picture and movies and photo sessions and so on, and I put an arrow and draw, and they didn't know I never knocked the arrow.
Exactly.
It just looked if the
like
arrow was on the string,
a little off, and you simply pull back with the arrow, but you don't knock the arrow.
Because of some, that gave a guy, how can you point an arrow at the person also, or at the,
This is what I always.
And I said, look, guys, this arrow is not knocked. If I lose the string, the arrow will fall down.
Yeah, exactly. This is how I teach people when they have a photo shooting. Said, listen, you never, especially they have no idea of bow and arrow, but they want to pose. Said, look, never knock the arrow. Keep it between your fingers and pull the string back independently. And if it comes off, the arrow simply falls on the ground. I did this when we had a photo shoot.
And Jack, because we talk about that cocked crossbow, so in movie making, they always have at least 2 or 3 similar items. So they have one crossbow when he really shots, and they have maybe one crossbow what is the cocked one and is safe, and they change it between the scenes and the shots, you know.
I like with Alec Baldwin's gun. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a new interview. He didn't pull the trigger. The gun
Yeah.
went. Gun just went off. You know, an
Mhm.
old single action
Yeah,
revolver.
even if you pull the hammer, it doesn't go off. So it's but
If you don't have the finger on the trigger, even if you snap the hammer,
Mhm.
it won't
Yeah.
fall on the cartridge.
yeah,
The
exactly.
primer. Yeah.
Doesn't work with this gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you have movies like Hard Target 2, and there was a part 2 with one of these martial arts, Steve Atkins or what the name is, and he was shooting in a scene a compound bow. Then he was standing there and he was drawing, and it was nice because you could see the arrow and he was in full draw, and then all of a sudden he started drawing more, and then he saw the arrow in the front didn't move anymore, but in the back it extended, and then he shot. So you could see it was so fake, but they only did it like, and they left it in the movie. It's so hilarious. What is it sometimes?
But for example, I think Sylvester Stallone in that second Rambo movie or so, I think at first he can shoot the bow
He
and
can
arrow.
shoot,
you
yes.
see, and I think there you see they did it the real way. I think.
Yeah, a few arrows he really shot. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's a matter of editing then, how you place the actors and stuff, so you can
yeah.
really make it look good.
The most critical thing in this movie was when he had a compound bow, but it was detached in the back.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have
exactly.
to you have to
You assemble the whole compound bow in 5 minutes. Yeah, of course. Good luck with that. Yeah. Without a mechanical press, you can't even put this.
I didn't remember this, but I watched that Rambo movie some month ago, because he liked to get off an airplane with a parachute. When he jumped off the plane, he lost all his, because he had very high sophisticated firearms and stuff with him, but he lost all this stuff except his bag with
Of course, the small bag with the sling string attached, like when you go to the gym. But the heavy, of course, it came off. Needs to fit the narrative. It's fine. yeah. But good movie nonetheless.
He's a kind of archery hero. I don't know how it was. Yeah, you're too young, Jack. But when that second Rambo movie was published, every guy went to the gun shop and bought the compound bow because it was so cool. Everyone had one. All these in Austria, all these very traditional rifle and gun store shops, they never had archery equipment before. But when this movie came out, everyone went to the gun shop. I need a bow, like like in the movie.
Yeah, there wasn't even the special edition, the Rambo edition, and then I was disappointed because the grenades were not on it. Yeah.
Very expensive now.
Yeah.
If you have one of these old sets, I think PSE or I don't know, made it very with the bag and with the with I showed
takedown arrows you showed. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Funny, but they all do something good. I mean, when
I would love to have one of these sets, of course, just to have it.
Yeah. I mean, when you see what Hunger Games did for archery, as example, in this time I was just in Lebanon and I was teaching archery there, and one day, all of a sudden, I don't know, 20 girlies came running to me. Oh, you do the archery. Can you teach me? Can you show me? I said, what the heck is wrong? Oh, we went yesterday in the cinema Hunger Games with Katniss Everdeen. Okay, fine.
I opened a local archery club that year, and it was packed the first day. With
hilarious,
so many girls. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. Everyone wanted to shoot, But it was fun, I mean, hey, it's good. So every promotion for archery is good.
Yeah.
Sure. I always wanted to do something in archery in my career, but it's hard to mix. I do this as a hobby, but it's. You said I've talked to you before to maybe open a school here in Canada. Not sure if people would be interested, but that is something that I consider.
Yeah.
But it would just be at my hobby, I'd say.
And it would also be very interesting, at least I imagine, to get to keep that indigenous archery
and get to
the natives, that few which kept this handcraft
It's forgotten
beautiful,
craft.
forgotten
The
craft.
forgotten techniques, yeah, and you dig them out, and via your shop and your small range, you teach the people again history, living history.
I think the Cherokee they had a kind of, I don't know how it worked, a kind of cornstalk shooting. They shoot at cornstalks or so.
Yeah,
I have
I don't
have
know.
to do research.
You
Very
need to
interesting.
ask Lars because he does Comanche shooting now.
For I have, I think, about 7 or 6 packs of, they're still available from ACE.
Mhm.
ACE, they make broadheads, and these are cornstalk points. So these are, I have to show it next time. This is like a field point with a long nail.
Mhm.
Or did they shoot at cornstalk bundles or so? I have to
I
check it
don't
out.
know.
Yeah, I
But
have to
what they
check
had
it
on
out.
hands most probably, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Mhm.
A kind of
Yeah.
competition.
Do more research, check. Come on, and then we do this indigenous competitions there, yeah, with flat bows and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
yeah, of
I
course.
know about like popinjay in Europe is quite common. Here in Canada, they, you know, for example, in Winnipeg, it's quite a popular sport now that caught up, where you shoot at something pretty net like narrow and but on the height, you know, on the pole. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I need to do more research. I haven't put a lot of emphasis on my on in North American archery. I have made videos about Algonquin bows, but I'm also interested in some other ones. But these are the kind of bows I can actually make myself. But you know, with the Asiatic ones, I don't have the skills to do that. So I mostly get reproductions, mostly fiberglass and synthetic bows.
Of course.
Yeah, you review a lot of bows, and I basically review heavy versions.
Yeah.
I see. I found here a video on YouTube, Cherokee Cornstalk shoot with Brian Jackson, and the channel is called Cherokee Nation, and he puts together some bundles of corn.
You watch now YouTube while you have our podcast
No,
running.
I just looked it up. These are as kind of 1 meter bundles of corn stalks, and I don't know. You have to look it out.
You can give me the link, and then I will put it in the video description of this podcast, and people can check it out. Like we put, of course, a link to your YouTube channel, and please, everybody who watched this video, please subscribe to his channel. It's really interesting what he does, and he can use every support he can possibly get.
Yeah. And if you like, so Jack, you can also use this podcast on your channel.
Yeah,
of course.
Thanks. And for people from my side, if there's luck watching, please subscribe to Armin or Peter as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Subscription is the problem. Only 20% of my viewers are subscribed to my channel. Imagine.
I don't know my data, but it's probably similar. It's not everyone.
Interesting. I don't know why people simply don't press this, and they only get notification that I have a new video out. Nothing more. They don't have to watch it. Well, but I would have more subscribers.
Could it simply be they don't have an account, and to create an account you have to press a few buttons?
Yeah,
I know. I have subscribed to your channel too, Jack. Of course, I just looked it up.
Good boy. And you could think about doing some Patreon work, like the Right Dragon. Right Dragon. He does historical research stuff, and he has a Patreon project where you can donate some money, and that it helps him for his research stuff. And even these two guys, I forgot another name. They are, I think, Turkish or somewhere. They do historical research too, but and they recreate some parts and items of it. And for this, they have a Patreon project running too, so that people can donate a little money and they will get some benefits of do extra video for the patrons or something.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I'm just one person. And a lot of people they say, I'm just one person, but I'm running a channel with such an ambitious name, and feels like there's a lot of responsibility for just one person.
Yes, of course.
But people need to remember, this is just a YouTube channel. It's not like a research form. So I'm definitely interested to collaborate with others. Like you mentioned, Red Dragon. I'm interested to collaborate with others who like doing research in my niche, and I'm sure plenty of people are interested. So if they're listening.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's interesting. It's always interesting. And when you see Shadiversity, when he discovers something and does his whatever, the arrow on the right side and not on the left side, and shooting 3 fingers and stuff like this. I don't know if you watch these videos.
Yes, yes.
And he shoots 70, 80 pound bows. So he shoots kind of like almost war bows. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. And everybody who gathers some information, you know, and then you test it and you see if it works or if it doesn't work or whatever, or then at least you have an idea how it could have worked. So this is this practical archaeology. I have a problem with this word, and I didn't even drink today.
I think it's experimental archaeology.
Yeah, or experimental archaeology, exactly. That you really test it, and then you know, okay, most likely it was like this or not or whatever. It's. I think it's interesting.
For sure.
Yep. So go ahead, move on. You have all our support, and if you need something, simply let me know.
Thank you very much.
If I can be of any help, I mean, I'm not a historian by any means. I only barely know how to shoot a bow and arrow, so that's why.
But as we talked in the past, you know, if you're an archer and if you have an idea about archery, you can find out a lot more than the archaeologists and you know and the academics, because you see something, an arrow or a bow or something, a device, and you can say, oh, it's for that or it's like that. But they just find, and if they have no idea about archery, you know, they came to wrong conclusions in many cases.
Yeah.
Well, previously, they are debating about the English longbow. They can't be possibly above 100 pounds because they just thought, you know, some archaeologists thought it was such a insane number compared to modern. But today, you see, there's quite a few people who can do it, and we're not like insanely. Like, I don't look like I'm a bodybuilder, but you don't need to be a bodybuilder to pull these weights. You just have to. It's muscles that you never use in real life. So you have to really just practice with a bow. Just working on a farm won't get you these muscles. Sure.
Make sure that you don't overdo it, because there was this video of the other guy who shoots heavy bows and then he ruined his shoulder for a while. So you need to really. I think you really need to work your way up there. So it's, you know, it's a little tricky.
For sure. I agree.
Armin just works out with the girls, you know.
No, not even, you know, I let them be in control. I lay there and have a sip of my good coffee or my tea. And
just let it happen.
Let it happen, you know. That's why I only learned Tai Chi, because this is more like, you know, the slow and not exhausting and whatever. That's why I'm a bit more, you know, I'm lazy. I admit that, yes. So. I'm in an age I can do that, you know. When I was younger, you know, then maybe it was different.
And Armin, what is your not Armin? Sorry, Jack. What is your profession for you?
My background's in engineering. I work in transportation field.
Okay.
Great.
So an engineer.
Not related to archery.
Doesn't matter.
But I do. I study civil engineering, and a lot of the structural analysis stuff is things I really like. You know, learning about compression.
Of course, helps.
I understand. And it's more in machine construction or vehicle construction.
Construction, like asphalt, concrete, that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Nice. Great. Shall we talk about the knife of the week? You have one? I told you.
I don't do knives.
You don't have knives. And you don't have one? Okay, then we do it next week.
Yeah. You know, Jack, for 5 weeks he hadn't a knife, but now he has one.
Because I found one. Yay! They're all somewhere in a box, and you know, I have one room here in my flat. There's full of boxes and all the bows and the quivers and my knives and throwing knives and everything is there.
So knife room.
A weapon room, yeah. My armor room, my weapon room, yeah. That's why.
I don't do knives. Sorry.
Fine. How do you put Nutella on your bread?
I use a plastic knife.
Yeah, Madonna. Use a plastic knife. Okay,
Oh,
fine.
that's
I
not
reuse, I reuse
that's not
water.
traditional.
Yeah.
Oh my
You,
god.
you know the traditional Gestapo will get you.
Yeah. How can you?
Yeah.
Mm. Great. Something else? You want to say something, Check? Something from you? You want to tell us something very important, or what's your next project coming?
I think yeah, I'll be doing more videos soon. I'm making a video about French longbow soon.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm gonna finish my Chinese crossbow video. I made 3 parts already. I'll finish it with the last one.
Okay.
And then I think later on, I got into slinging, like Roman style slinging, and I want to compare with archers versus slingers. That's something I
Okay.
want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, yeah, I also have the repeating crossbow. I have to make a video about it. Yeah, there's quite a lot of projects for me to do.
Okay.
Like sometimes, like it just takes a long time because like the French longbow video, I had to read the sources in French, so it takes a while to do videos. So
Of course.
I focus on quality, not quantity anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Great. Is the Roman sling, is this with the stick and the sling on top, like the shepherd sling, or
No,
what?
I do Balearic, like
This weird one? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot
like
of
the
fun.
David's
We have it in the front and in the back of the yeah, and then you have
they call it the David sling from the Bible, you know,
yeah,
David
this is
for Goliath,
it's
Yeah.
my
different.
opinion. Yeah,
It's a lot harder to hit accurately, but there are
Yeah,
people
yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah.
can do it for sure.
And
Cool.
I because you talk about the Romans, I once saw a video or in a book, I don't remember. They also had kind of big darts to throw,
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
very
Supposed to.
heavy
Flat out.
darts, like big arrows they threw.
Mm-hmm. It's
Oh
this
yeah,
one where you.
I have this Roman crossbow project going on soon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then we see. We wait for your next video, Check. No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Too many videos to work on. Yeah, but also like people send me bows to review, so then yeah,
Great.
it's busy. Yeah.
Great.
And because I asked today for you for connecting on Facebook, I think we were friends in the past, but my account got hacked, so I lost all my friends. So I had to befriend you.
Okay, I'll add you.
He refriended you. Oh, now I have one friend more. Look.
Yeah.
So short before Christmas. Oh, isn't that nice?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm joking. Great. Was a really interesting talk, and we were talking mostly 95% about archery and stuff, huh?
Yep.
Because some people always complain when we drift a little off and talk about something else. Yeah.
But I have an off archery question
Okay.
because your family moved from China to Canada. How is it about religion? So the Chinese people, which are in Canada or the United States, are they adopt the religions of the of the country you go to, or do you have still the Confucius stuff?
Well, when you think of China, it's not a like a homogeneous country. Where there's quite a lot of ethnicities. In my background, it's not just Han. I have Manchurian and Chinese background, like Han, Chinese Han, and Mongolian background. So typically with the Han, these days they're mostly atheists. Historically, yeah,
Really?
there's been a lot more Buddhist, but it depends on the ethnicity. There's also like a significant Muslim population. That's a whole new different topic I don't want to get into, but there's quite a lot of religions. But yeah, my family didn't really practice much, so I don't think it was really affected by.
Not so religious. So your family
I
was
were agnostic.
okay.
I'm like flexible with religions, like because
I think that was also a thing that Mao destroyed a lot because they what I found out, they destroyed everything, but nowadays they are going back to Confucius and so on. They just like it more today, but than in the past when the big communist movement was.
it's quite a. I don't want to get into politics in that, but there's good videos on it. But the conversations can get quite political. I would say I think it's out of scope of my knowledge.
Okay. Okay.
I think the new religion is capitalism.
Money. That's
And
really
not Confucianism or Taoism.
When I was in Nanjing, I was in the Confucius temple. Showed it proudly. They showed it to me. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he was an archery instructor. Confucius.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, in no discipline than in archery, you see directly the character of the human being. And he's right. You see someone shooting 3 arrows and you can tell him directly, look, this and this and this is going on with you. And they're like, oh, how do you know? I said, yeah, I see you shooting an arrow, so I know.
But that's true, because you have a lot of students, and I had a lot of them in the past too. And you see if someone is afraid of doing wrong, or you see if he's self-confident or so. So Confucius was right in
yes, or can't let go or needs control. Most female have this control need, and they still aim, even if you tell them, look with 2 eyes to the target. I do, but I don't aim, and then they still have it.
Also males. Males do it too.
Yeah, but I have more female. They have this control. The males mostly listen then, but once it snaps with the female, then there's they fan club. Yeah, they like it. It's nice. Yeah, you need to open an archery school there. Check. That doesn't help. Do you have some traditional archery close where you live somewhere, or is it only more?
No, just modern North American archery.
Then it's time. Come on. Look, one of my former students, Shad, from America, he is now in, I forgot where he is exactly.
Oh, there's one place, sorry, my bad. There's a horse archery club.
Horse archery is again a little different. They do it a little differently, yeah.
Yes.
But you with all your knowledge, historical archery, and then you have historical archery range, where you teach some historical techniques and show a little, stuff, and it would be interesting. Especially then the native stuff, what was going on there, and then what is going on in Asiatic countries and longbows, and you could introduction, whatever, half an hour of with history and then an hour shooting. Be nice.
Yeah, that'd be good. Maybe I retire like that. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Like Armin.
You don't look like you're the age to retire. You don't look like the age. You look too young for that.
No, I don't work anymore. I sold my range. I sold my archery a year ago already. More than a year ago now already. So I have nothing. I only bit YouTube.
Well, that's good. It's no stress.
Yeah. No, it's enough stress. I get so many bows. I have still right now 5 bows here to review. It's a lot of,
Same here.
So stressful. And today I did another of these survival bows, we like so much, these foldable ones. It's 24 inches core, and then the limbs are kind of like 20 inches. And of course you can't get the performance out of it. Like if you have a bow where the rise is only 3 inches or 4 inches. And of course at 28, then the string angle was already way beyond 90 degrees. But it still does a job. At least it had 40 pounds, so it's fine.
Wow.
It's really very specific, a very niche bow, so it's not for many people. But this is a bow I would, because you can pack it very small. It's like it's not big. It's squarish, and the limbs fold together, and you can even take down arrows inside. And this one I could see simply throw it in a bag and throw it in my car.
Yeah.
And it stays there for always. And just in case you need something, you didn't bring your fancy bow with you, then you pick this one and shoot it. This is, I could see. Other than that, I would always take this as my second or my backup bow, but not as my main bow.
I think that would appeal to like the slingshot community or the survival community.
Yeah, it's only survival. Yeah, it's for the survivalists. Yeah, of course, that's for this fancy, but it's not so accurate. It's 25 or 27 millimeter. The square tube in the middle and 7-inch brace head, so the arrow points really far off. You really need to practice a lot that you get this right, and it takes a while. It's interesting that it exists, but I said it would be always my B bow, but not my A bow. So this one I throw in the car and leave it there, and whenever you go somewhere and whatever you feel like, I need to hunt now. Okay, I have a bow with me. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I would not
But you have to disinfect your hands after shooting it.
Why that?
No, because it's an ugly thing. You touch an ugly thing.
Oh my God.
Oh, wait, I don't want to go this way. So that's why you disinfect always your hands when your girlfriend leaves the house.
No, she's not ugly. She's not ugly.
No, she's not ugly.
It's beautiful.
No, the bow is not ugly. It's like an industrial piece. You know, it doesn't look bad. It's simply not a bow in what we think a bow should look like. And of course, with this short 20-inch, I mean, if you put this together with a small handle, then the bow would be, I don't know, 45 inches. Of course, you don't get a proper 28 or 30-inch draw out of it, out of normal straight limbs. You know, this is not going to happen. Of course, you get not the better performance than, but it's normal. And the speed was now not so nice.
It's better than no bow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's better than no bow.
Yeah.
And I said, as a second one, or you put it in your backpack, or you have it somewhere with you.
That's a no bow.
A no bow. Every hobo has a no bow. You know what?
That's like me with my sling. I have it in my car. And you don't need ammunition. You can just use rocks.
Exactly.
And, it's just something very easy to carry.
Yeah, of course. And you always can make one, exactly. And then you throw your rocks.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I can't put a bow in my car because it would just freeze in the winter.
Yeah.
Do we have snow right now?
Yeah, it's too cold to shoot. That's why I don't shoot in the winter.
You need an indoor range then, with a bit museum where you show a bit artifacts and stuff, and then a small shooting range.
They don't even have an indoor range here, so I think.
Do I need to move now to Canada and do this? I have already an invitation to Canada. Say, can you please come and show us and teach us and set an archery range up for us?
But I think in the United States there are a lot of indoor ranges, no?
It's just the specific place I'm at. There's, because of what COVID happened, there is one indoor range, but they're very specific about.
Okay.
You need a certain draw weight. They don't They don't like when you do thumb draw. They only like compound and.
Yeah. Of course.
Not my thing. Yeah. So I don't like indoor ranges usually here. So I go outdoor range because nobody's there to tell me what to do. And,
exactly. Or you do your own indoor range. Come on.
Yeah. So I did think about I might
get it going. Yeah, makes sense. It's fun. It's really fun. I mean, I saw it with Ali, who came from Texas, and he's a thumb shooter. He started in Korea shooting Korean bows. It's the only thing. And he opens up now an archery range. He has already martial arts school, and he opens up an archery range. And he was not sure about his skills, about teaching archery. And then he saw how we do it, that, you know, with the snake bows, 3 fingers, boom, easy. Next hour, next group, boom, easy. And he was like, you know, oh, I can do that. Yeah. So he will start now teaching them 3 fingers first, because it's still a little easier to teach than directly starting with thumb release. When you have a group going in 1 hour, it's a little easier. And then he gives classes for thumb release and, you know, for the intermediate advanced stuff. So makes sense.
Nice. Yeah, I might open something here in.
And as I just said, Chad, he was one of my students. He ran my range in Valletta at the shopping mall, and he is now where he is now in Oregon. I don't know where he is in America exactly. And he opened now an archery range. He was a writer and whatever, but now he opened an archery range and he's quite successful. He wrote now even a book, How to Shoot Bow and Arrow, and he sent it to me to read it, and it will come out now printed. So it's really interesting, and he's successful, and he simply follows what he learned here. So, and it works. It's fine. He makes his money now. Just
amazing.
Yeah. I like this, you know, I like when you spread when people at least use what they learned here. So that's not.
Yeah. You can be proud.
I am. I'm so proud. Look, I got bigger. I don't fit in the frame now anymore. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, guys, we are at 2.5 hours almost. Shall we?
Oh yeah.
Shall we call it a day for today? And I think we will invite you again, Jack, if you don't mind. If you like to talk to us again, then you can keep us, you know, updated with your projects and what's going on right now. And then many more people will have subscribed to your channel and know you already way better and look forward to the next one. So that we in a few weeks' time, whatever, we invite you again and we have another talk. Would be that something for you? Would you like to join again? I mean, it can happen that you hate us and you don't want to come, but it's
yes, for sure. Just right now, I'm quite busy with work.
Of course.
I'll let you know when
whenever it's possible, of course. Okay, then.
Was a pleasure to talk to you and
It's
to
really a pleasure.
get
Yeah,
some of your knowledge and
yeah.
experiments and so on.
It's
Very
really
interesting, amazing.
Yeah, very interesting. I
Thank
like
you.
it. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much at home for watching and subscribing to all 3 of our channels, and watch all videos, because you need not only subscription, you need watch time, and you need clicks, and you need and share the videos and do all this stuff.
Kisses.
And everything. Yeah, we need some love. Yeah, archery is such a loveless sport nowadays. Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice evening.
Bye, guys.
And enjoy. Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.